I live with my mom in a house we bought about a year and a half ago, but we didn't actually move in until 6 months ago because it needed extensive repairs. The house was in rough condition, so we had to fix a lot, even adding an entirely new section. While renovations were ongoing, I would sometimes visit at night to spend time there, and almost every time, I heard creaking sounds, like the house shifting or something moving inside. The noises unsettled me, especially since the newly built section had open areas where someone could easily slip in. I kept glancing around, half expecting to see something, but nothing ever appeared. I reminded myself that houses make random noises and tried to shake off the uneasy feeling. Then, one late night while the house was still under construction, I decided to go inside. I didn't have a key, so I used the garage code to enter. The garage door was loud, and in the quiet of the night, its noise echoed through the entire house. Just as it started opening, I suddenly heard a loud crash, like pots and pans clattering together. The strange part was that we didn't have any in the house at the time. My heart pounded as I stood frozen, trying to process what I had just heard and decide what to do. I looked around, but nothing seemed out of place. In the end, I chose not to take any risks. I quickly shut the garage door and left. That was the only time I ever heard something like that, but after that night, I never felt comfortable being alone in the house again. I only returned when someone was with me. A few months later, my mom and I finally moved in, and life started feeling normal. The strange noises I had heard during the renovations became less frequent, though they never stopped completely. I still hear them now, mostly late at night when everything is silent. Since I tend to stay up until 3 or 4 a.m., I notice them often, soft bumps and taps, like someone accidentally hitting a door with their elbow or lightly knocking on the walls. To avoid scaring myself, I always sleep with my fan on. The background noise helps me ignore the sounds and sleep in peace. Last night, though, I decided to save energy and left the fan off. As I lay in bed in the dark, I suddenly heard a noise that sounded exactly like the basement door closing. It was 5 a.m., and I knew my mom was asleep. Then, I heard what sounded like slow, shuffling footsteps in the hallway, moving closer to my room. My mom's bedroom is on the other side of the house, so she wouldn't have heard it. I grabbed my phone, opened the dial pad, and hovered over the call button for 911, trying to stay calm. After a few minutes of silence, I turned my fan on for comfort but kept my phone close, just in case. Eventually, I fell asleep. The next morning, I noticed one of my foster kittens acting strangely. He was hiding in a corner, avoiding me, and hissing when I tried to get close. I'd had him for a week, and the only other time he acted this way was on his first day. Since then, he had been fine, eating, playing, and letting me pet him. Something must have scared him overnight, though I had no idea what. His brother seemed fine, but he's always been the calmer one, so I wasn't sure if he would react even if something was wrong. Later that night, I sat in the room next to the hallway, near both the attic and basement doors. I kept my pocket knife within reach and listened carefully. Around 1 a.m., I heard it again, clear footsteps in the other room, not just the usual creaks of an old house settling. I grabbed my phone and once again hovered over the 911 call button, hesitating to panic too soon. Then, I carefully picked up my kittens and moved toward my mom's room for safety. The movement woke up our dog, but since he has poor eyesight and a weak sense of smell, he's easily startled and not much of a guard dog. I told my mom I thought someone might be inside. She took the dog and went outside to check the perimeter while I searched the hallway rooms, avoiding the attic and basement for now. Once she was back, we grabbed a step ladder and checked the attic together, empty. Then we moved on to the basement. Our basement is unfinished and has a crawl space that leads to a door on the porch. It's dark, cramped, and an easy hiding spot, but we didn't go inside to check, which left me uneasy. To be sure, I placed tape on the basement door to see if it would be disturbed overnight. Instead of going to bed, I stayed in the living room with all the lights on and the TV playing loudly. If someone was sneaking around, I wanted them to think I was awake so they wouldn't try anything. Tomorrow, my brother and dad are coming over to help me check everything thoroughly. I can't keep living with the feeling that someone might be in my house. I'm getting really frustrated trying to make sense of all this. I live in a house, and for the past month, strange things have been happening. At first, it was small stuff, objects not being where I left them or faint noises when I was alone. But the more I noticed, the weirder it got, and at times, I felt like someone was watching me. There were creaking sounds, the TV turning on by itself when I was sure I had turned it off, and little noises around the house, soft tapping or the sound of footsteps in empty rooms. I tried to brush it off, thinking there had to be a logical explanation. My girlfriend stays over a few times a week, usually spending the night at least twice. She gets anxious easily, but I always try to take her worries seriously. One night, while I was working late, she let herself in with her key and put on a basketball game. She later told me she heard noises that made it sound like someone else was in the house. It scared her so much that she left right away. When I got home, I checked every room but saw no signs of a break-in. If someone had been inside, they didn't leave any obvious clues behind. One day, we walked into the kitchen and found all the cabinets wide open. Nothing was missing, just left open as if someone had searched through them. My bedroom was the same way, dresser drawers pulled out, closet door open, yet nothing taken. It was unsettling, like someone had gone through my things but wasn't interested in stealing anything. What made it even creepier was that, in the past few weeks, a stalker had been bothering people in our housing complex. This person even managed to break into someone's home once, which made me wonder if they had been in mine. What was even stranger was that my girlfriend's things were untouched. All her clothes in the drawer were exactly as she had left them. It made me question whether this was really some random intruder, because you'd think they would have taken something. Instead, it felt like someone had specifically gone through my belongings and ignored hers. Then, we started experiencing extreme temperature changes in the house, huge shifts that made no sense. Between midnight and 2 a.m., the place would suddenly become unbearably hot, as if someone had turned the heater all the way up, even though we hadn't touched it. Then, just as quickly, the temperature would return to normal. It got so bad that we had to take off most of our clothes because we were sweating through the sheets. One time, the thermostat even read 101 degrees Fahrenheit. But during the day, the opposite would happen, the temperature would drop suddenly to around 55 degrees Fahrenheit. We had to wear jackets indoors, which was bizarre considering it was summer in Florida. I figured it had to be some issue with the heating or AC, so I had one of the maintenance guys check it out. But after inspecting everything, he found nothing wrong. The temperature shifts continued, though they became less frequent over time. Then, one night while my girlfriend and I were lying in bed, we heard loud banging on the walls. At first, I thought someone was pounding on the front door, but the sound was too close, like it was coming from inside the room or just outside the wall. It wasn't a normal noise either, it was deep, forceful, like someone was slamming against the wall with real power. Like every character in a horror movie who makes a bad decision, I decided to check it out. I walked through the house, checking doors and windows, but everything was locked. There was no sign of anyone being inside. The house was silent, so I went back to bed. But the second I lay down, the banging started again, same sound, same intensity, right next to us. My girlfriend didn't wait around to see what would happen next. She grabbed her stuff and left, and honestly, I didn't blame her. At first, I thought maybe someone was messing with us, but again, all the doors and windows were secure. I always double-checked them before bed, so it didn't seem likely that an actual person had gotten inside. The last night my girlfriend stayed over, we were in bed when we heard footsteps downstairs. This time, I didn't hesitate. I bolted down the stairs, hoping to catch whoever was there. But just like before, I found nothing. The house was empty. I wanted to scream from frustration. That night, my girlfriend left and told me she wasn't coming back. She didn't feel safe in the house anymore, and I couldn't blame her for that either. One morning, I woke up to find my bedroom door wide open. The bathroom door was open too, and the shower was running, hot water filling the upstairs with steam, making it feel like a sauna. I knew for a fact I hadn't left the water on the night before, and I had no idea how it could have happened. I've also been seeing strange movements out of the corner of my eye. It's like a shadowy figure, just barely visible. The moment I turn to look, it's gone. At first, I thought I was just tired, but it's happening more frequently now, and it's starting to get to me. It looks vaguely human, maybe even female, but never clear enough to make out any details. It always vanishes the second I try to focus on it, like it was never there to begin with. To rule out logical explanations, I had the house tested for mold and carbon monoxide, just in case something in the air was causing hallucinations or confusion. But everything came back normal. So, whatever's going on, it's not due to air quality or poisoning. Up until now, my security cameras hadn't picked up anything unusual, no strange movements, no unexplained shadows, nothing. But then, my bedroom camera finally caught something. It wasn't what I expected, though. It was an image of the stalker who had been sneaking around our neighborhood. That was a shock. I wasn't expecting to find anything like that, but at least it confirmed that someone had been lurking nearby. I'm planning to move the cameras around and see if I catch anything else. Maybe placing them in different spots will reveal something I've been missing. If not, I might invest in better ones. But at least I know my cameras weren't completely useless. They caught something important, even if it wasn't what I was looking for. I'm 36 now, but this happened when I was around 8 years old. I went to a tiny school in the countryside of northern France. It had only a handful of classrooms and not many students. At the time, my parents had recently divorced, so I lived with my mom. She was one of the 3 teachers at the school, which meant I spent a lot of time there, even during summer vacations. While other kids stayed home or traveled, I still had to go with her for part of the break. I don't remember the exact schedule, but I know we spent a lot of time playing outside or playing board games inside an old building. This building had once been a home for a teacher or the school director. Most of the time, it was off limits, and because there were hardly any lights inside, it was always dark. But in the summer, they let us use one room on the ground floor to escape the heat. It was probably an old living room, mostly empty except for some worn-out chairs and tables where we played games. There was also an old kitchen and a washroom, but I don't remember them well. What really matters here is the upper floor. There might have been an attic as well, but I can't recall it clearly, so let's just focus on the first floor above the ground level. It was accessible from the living room via a very old staircase. Upstairs, there were a few rooms, an old bedroom, a strange room that used to be a pigeon loft, and another packed with shelves. The pigeon loft was unusual. It had open holes in the walls where birds could fly in and out, and there were wooden ledges where they could rest. The storage room was filled from floor to ceiling with shelves, but I don't remember what was on them. I only went up there twice. I never stepped into the bedroom, only caught a quick glimpse inside the pigeon loft, and entered the storage room just once. The whole upstairs had an eerie, abandoned feeling. The air was dusty, the wooden floors creaked, and the dim light made everything look old and forgotten. Why didn't I go up there more often? Well, this is where things get interesting. One day, a small group of us, fewer than 10 kids, all of whom I knew, were playing board games in the living room. The only adult in the room had to step outside for a bit. I don't remember why, but before leaving, he asked some of us to clean up and put the games away in the storage room upstairs. Only a few kids had ever been up there before. One of them was Alan, a boy I knew well. We were in the same grade until I moved up a level. We weren't best friends and sometimes argued, but we were still pretty close. After cleaning up, 4 of us followed Alan upstairs to put the games away. The storage room was exactly as I remembered, filled with shelves, covered in dust. If you looked at it from above, you'd see several rows of shelves, but to move between them, you had to go to the right side of each row because the left side was against the wall. Alan wasn't sure where the board games belonged, so we split up to search. Some of us looked for other games while others tried to find an empty spot on the shelves. Out of everything in that room, I only remember one object clearly, a large green Halloween mask sitting on one of the shelves near the back. It reminded me of the haunted mask from Goosebumps. It looked as if something was oozing from its mouth. I've always been easily scared, so the mask unsettled me right away. I called over another kid who was nearby, and as soon as he saw it, he got scared too. The way it was positioned, it almost looked like it was watching us, like its eyes followed our movements. Just then, we heard Alan say he had found the right spot for the games, but instead of helping him, we called the others over to see the mask. As soon as they got close, something terrifying happened. The mask suddenly shifted to the side and started moving. It was no longer on the shelves. It seemed to be behind them, sliding toward the right side of the room. Of course, we all screamed and bolted downstairs as fast as we could. We told the other kids what had just happened while keeping a nervous eye on the staircase, terrified that something might follow us. Not long after, the adult returned. When we told him what we had seen, he laughed, saying we were just imagining things. But he still went upstairs to check. We waited anxiously at the bottom of the stairs. After a few minutes, he came back down and told us there was nothing there. Later, I told my mom about what had happened. She didn't believe anything strange had occurred, but she still took me upstairs to check. I refused to step into the storage room. I was too afraid of what I might see. She went inside, looked around, and assured me that nothing was there. For a little while, we talked about it among ourselves, but after that, the incident faded into the past. The strangest part of the whole thing. When I brought it up again a few months later, none of the other kids remembered it. It was as if they had completely forgotten, even though my mom still recalled me telling her about it. So I know it really happened. Out of the 5 kids who went into that storage room that day, I seem to be the only one who still remembers.